Good evening and welcome to the 2022 State of Homelessness. I'm LAHSA's Acting Co-Executive Director, Christina Dixon.
And I'm LAHSA's other Co-Acting Executive Director, Molly Reisman.
On behalf of everyone at Team LAHSA, we're pleased to have you join us.
Because of the support of voters, advocates of homeless services, including our Homeless Count volunteers, and the collaborative effort of our nonprofit and government partners across LA County, we have more resources and housing opportunities that have helped to rehouse thousands of individuals experiencing homelessness each year.
But we still have a long way to go and a lot of work to do to meet the need across the region. Tonight, we'll examine the methods and outcomes of the work happening in our rehousing system that LAHSA and its provider partners focus on to deliver vital services each day.
My name is Alexander Furtado. I am the Youth Action Board Coordinator for HIFLA, also known as the Homeless Youth Forum of Los Angeles. HIFLA works to end youth homelessness in Los Angeles County by centering the voices of youth with lived experience. My role at HIFLA came to be. I got out of incarceration and I then ended up homeless. And so I reached out to an organization called Safe Place for Youth. I was provided shelter for about 8 months. I was able to become a community ambassador and work as a frontline staff member for Safe Place for Youth. I then became familiar with LAHSA as an entity and as an organization. I involved myself in different projects and different boards that they had available. So from joining HIFLA myself to joining another board and involving myself in projects, it was put on my radar that there was an opening for a coordinator position for HIFLA. I then applied and am now able to service my peers as the coordinator. I think more permanent supportive housing needs to be made available to end homelessness or to support people experiencing homelessness. I think a lot of times when it comes to different housing, there's a lot of red tape and rules and regulations. You cannot make a certain amount of money entering the program. After you enter the program of permanent supportive housing, that threshold rises a little bit where you can make a little more money. But it's still, I think, not enough for somebody to focus and get their life into the right direction if they are also receiving supportive services. I don't think the idea is to, when someone is trying to be successful and is in a way, not to cut them off and say, hey, you're making too much money, maybe saying, hey, you're reaching this threshold, but we're going to reevaluate at the end of the year and see what other programs or what other options, is best for you now, rather than cutting somebody off completely. If there was more housing, I think it would help people kind of acclimate and adjust to kind of being on their own, or if there is still more supportive services that people may need, whether that's substance abuse services, mental health services, educational services, employment services, maybe housing with more supportive services that are actually more hands-on, because some of these individuals are out here because they're used to living a certain way or they can't function normally, and so that assistance is detrimental to seeing somebody succeed. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for listening and for being here with me.
Most people know that there are many overlapping and sometimes conflicting goals when it comes to addressing homelessness. Our community has had many conversations about governance and strategies, and we've been listening.
Over the past few years, working with national experts and the insights from thousands of people who work to rehouse thousands of Angelenos every year, we've developed the methods, found the resources, and sparked the will to unify our focus.
Using new state and federal resources in how we responded to COVID, new strategies were implemented that worked. We have the new strategies to bring homeless Angelenos inside and on a path to exiting homelessness faster.
Every day our community produces reasons for hope and heartbreak. Our system ends homelessness for 207 people every day. But economic pressures, a broken social safety net, and a lack of affordable housing forces 227 people into homelessness. During the pandemic, an unprecedented alignment of resources from federal, state, and local governments came together with LAHSA and our nonprofit partners to create programs like Project Room Key that brought thousands of our unsheltered neighbors inside with great speed. Project Room Key was the cornerstone of our pandemic response. With more than 10,000 people served, we learned what it took to move people inside quickly, and for the first time, we were given the resources to make it happen. We also used some of those added resources to end homelessness for over 4,000 of the people who participated in Project Room Key. Our community must continue to work together to keep this momentum going. Let's look at the big picture. About 568,000 people are experiencing homelessness nationwide. More than a quarter of those people, about 151,000, are here in California. Regions that have successfully made a dent in homelessness have done it by balancing investments in 3 areas. First, you need to prevent people from becoming homeless. Second, you need to rehouse people who are experiencing homelessness. And third, you need to build enough housing so that supply meets demand. Balancing these 3 areas of investment has led to reductions in homelessness across the country, including in Houston, Connecticut, and Bakersfield. So we know it can be done. Los Angeles has invested heavily in the rehousing system that LAHSA leads, but not enough in prevention and housing creation. Our community will make greater strides toward ending homelessness when it fully invests in each of these areas. 4 major areas of federal and state policy choices have led to the homelessness crisis we have today, including the overrepresentation of Black people experiencing homelessness. We let incomes stagnate while prices rose. Renters in LA County need to earn $38.28 per hour, 2.5 times the City of LA minimum wage, to afford the average monthly asking rent of $1,988. We stopped investing in our mental health infrastructure. California ended institutionalization for mental health care. The intent was to replace the system with other mental health resources, but never came into fruition. We allowed tenant protections and land use tools to be undermined and to discriminate by race. The government practice of redlining withheld home loans to communities made up of people of color. We built out a mass incarceration and punitive criminal justice system that have become huge drivers of homelessness, disproportionately affecting Black Angelenos. Here in Los Angeles, one of the key drivers today is we simply don't have the housing supply we need. Last year, the California Housing Partnership estimated that LA County needed a little under 500,000 units of affordable housing to meet the need. This is because decades of federal, state, and local policy choices have restricted housing development, drove up prices, and marginalized people of color. The result, Los Angeles County has roughly the same number of housing units now with a population of 10 million as we did when our population was 6 million. When combined with population growth, our lack of housing has led to skyrocketing rents. Studies show that homelessness rises when median rents in a region exceed 22% of median income. In LA, the median rent is 46.7%, or nearly half of median income. Increasing our supply of affordable housing will both help us reduce unsheltered homelessness and keep more people on the edge of homelessness in their homes.
About a month ago, LAHSA announced that we're making significant changes to how LA's rehousing system works. After over 2 years of evaluating our system and meeting with providers, elected officials, government partners, and people with lived experience, LAHSA is refocusing our efforts to better serve the housed and unhoused people of the LA region. Informed by providers, our government partners, and people with lived experience, we have a new vision, system goals, and metrics to define collective success and measure our progress. LAHSA is taking this step as the lead strategist and system administrator of LA's regional rehousing system. The limits of our authority have been discussed widely. This refocused vision drives changes in the areas we can control and aims to end homelessness for more people faster. Our changes are focused on a central goal to reduce unsheltered homelessness in LA County. We've worked with communities across LA County to begin changing how we move people from unsheltered to housed faster and more efficiently over the next 3 years. By ending homelessness for our sheltered neighbors, we'll open more shelter beds and bring more of our unsheltered neighbors inside. To move people into housing faster, we are updating the policy that matches an unhoused neighbor to permanent supportive housing to ensure that more people are eligible and that we are quickly taking advantage of the thousands of Proposition HHH units coming online in the next few years. We're reimagining the use of time-limited subsidies to connect more people to housing faster. The funding we received during the pandemic allowed us to trial using time-limited subsidies to end homelessness for Project Roomkey participants. That recovery rehousing program brought over 2,300 households home. We're going to use a similar program to bring even more of our unhoused neighbors home. Finally, LA County has made significant investments in expanding homeless interim housing. We need to ensure that people who go into interim housing have a pathway to exiting homelessness permanently. LAHSA is redesigning our housing navigation programs to focus on people living in interim housing and supporting their permanent exits from homelessness. With these changes, we are looking to build upon the success we've already experienced. Our system made over 21,000 permanent housing placements in 2021, helping tens of thousands of homeless Angelenos exit homelessness for good. Our data shows a significant increase in permanent supportive housing placements as a result of new permanent supportive housing opening because of funding from Proposition HHH and state and county affordable housing funding. Even with this 3% increase from last year, LAHSA is not satisfied with this progress. Our new strategies are designed to increase the number of people exiting homelessness in 2022 and reducing unsheltered homelessness.
While we have a new focus and vision, we are not changing our primary goal of placing our clients into permanent housing. Our work will remain grounded in proven best practices that are trauma-informed and rooted in housing first. LAHSA works in partnership with amazing community partners. Our work is done on the ground by nonprofit organizations across the county working in every region of the county and focused on different populations experiencing homelessness, like families, adults, youth, veterans, older adults, domestic violence survivors, and many others. Providers coordinate access centers and access points, which are walk-in centers where case managers are centrally located to provide support. Providers operate outreach teams which fan out across the county to reach people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. They operate interim housing programs with skilled case managers, clinicians, and housing navigators to help people get on a path to permanent housing. They help people secure a home of their own and then help them stabilize and thrive in their new homes. Across our system, we have programs and policies designed to ensure we are hiring and promoting people with lived experience, especially Black people who are overrepresented among people experiencing homelessness. This is part of ensuring our programs effectively meet the needs of the people that they serve. While LAHSA has generalist outreach teams, it is the county departments of health services and mental health, not LAHSA, that serve the most vulnerable people experiencing homelessness. These services are vital to reduce and prevent the number of people dying while experiencing homelessness, the majority of them from heart disease and substance abuse, according to the latest mortality report from Department of Public Health. The Department of Health Services, Housing for Health, provides housing and services to people with complex medical and behavioral health conditions. Department of Health Services also operates a sobering center which provides specialized interventions to avoid criminalization and costly hospitalization for people struggling in their addiction, housing programs that provide clinically enhanced shelter, programs focusing on people exiting the criminal justice system with clinical needs, and wraparound services for people in permanent supportive housing. The County Department of Mental Health operates board and care facilities which house aging and disabled individuals experiencing homelessness. The Department of Mental Health provides a wide variety of programs for people with severe mental illness, including outreach, wraparound care, crisis housing, and mental health treatment. Our system continues to strive to make up for the failures of past public decisions. Among the new clients we enrolled into programs and services last year, 35% of clients served were Black. a critical measure for us because we know that Black people are 8% of the county population and 34% of people experiencing homelessness, due to legacies of systemic racism and discrimination that are still being dismantled. And Latinos made up 36% of all clients served. At LAHSA, we know we must do more for underserved communities and is committed to advancing racial equity in our work and among the people we serve. Outreach works best when our teams have ample time to engage with people living on the streets and build the relationship and trust necessary for our clients to come inside. This can include helping a client obtain documents necessary for housing, such as a Social Security card, or connecting a client to medical care. Once the client is ready, our teams help them move inside and onto a path towards permanent housing. Despite the ongoing pandemic, our outreach team contacted more people experiencing unsheltered homelessness than ever before. Those contacts led to over 5,000 people coming inside to shelter and over 1,300 ending their homelessness. LAHSA receives limited funding to operate programs that can keep people from falling into homelessness. We call those efforts problem solving. The key element of the programs are legal eviction support and assistance with back rent. This can include legal assistance, financial support to people on the verge of eviction, and reunification with family and friends. In 2021, LAHSA's problem solving kept over 7,400 people out of homelessness using subsidies, emergency funds, and legal support. Our government partners' significant investment in shelter began in 2020 and continued in 2021. We used those resources to bring over 27,000 people inside. As Molly mentioned earlier, LAHSA is improving its system to ensure more of the people in shelter obtain a permanent home. I know our outreach teams look forward to filling those newly available beds with more of our unsheltered neighbors. Permanent housing is what ends homelessness, the most important part of our system. Once someone is stabilized in housing, they start to recover in every other aspect of their lives. Temporary shelter is good, but it's actually more expensive than housing and only a stopgap to help people get to safety inside until housing is available. Our system connects people to the resources that meet their specific situation. That can be reunification with friends and family, specialized housing for seniors or veterans or those with disabilities, or a voucher for rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, or permanent housing. In spite of LA's limited affordable housing supply, our system helped 21,213 people come home in 2021. While LAHSA is acting to help our unsheltered and sheltered neighbors find a permanent home faster, we cannot end homelessness alone. Our partners at all levels of government must act to rebuild our broken social safety net and build more permanent housing. There are thousands of people who still need economic help to keep their homes and thousands more who are being let down by our correctional, foster care, and welfare systems and will enter homelessness. Something must be done to limit the number of people who need our services. Los Angeles County still lacks approximately 500,000 units of affordable housing. The lack of affordable housing both pushes more people into homelessness and denies LAHSA and its partners homes to place our unhoused neighbors. And we can't do it without you. Everyone has a role to play in ending homelessness. First, help us advocate for change. Join everyone in through United Way to find out how you can advocate for the policies and solutions to stop people from being pushed into homelessness and to increase LA's supply of affordable housing. Second, contribute your time. By getting to know our neighbors experiencing homelessness, we gain an understanding of their pain and trauma, and that fuels our activism. There are so many community organizations doing amazing work. You can find your local system lead provider on LAHSA's Get Involved page by visiting lahsa.org/Get Involved.
Our best assets are our people, our work, and our honesty. No one can be satisfied by what we see when we look around us. Tonight, we're going to have a courageous conversation about what the work looks like, what the obstacles are to getting it done, and what we can change. I'm joined by my fellow LAHSA Co-Executive Director, Molly Reisman, LAHSA Senior Youth Initiatives Manager, Kenneth Chansey, United Way's Director of Homeless Initiatives, Carter Hughley, and LAHSA Commissioner Irene Myrtle, who is the Executive Director for Whittier First Day. Thank you all for joining tonight. Let's start things off with one of the main issues on people's minds, unsheltered homelessness. Molly, I'd like your thoughts on why is it important to focus on moving from interim housing to permanent housing?
Thank you for that question, Christina. It's such an important part of how we're pivoting our strategy at LAHSA. We have for a long time been committed to moving as many people as we possibly can into permanent housing. But we had an amazing opportunity in the pandemic with Project Room Key to move thousands of people very quickly out of unsheltered homelessness, out of encampments, into hotel rooms through Project Room Key. And by pairing those hotel rooms with housing navigation and case management and permanent housing, we were able to quickly move people through the rooms so that those rooms could turn over and we could get more people off the streets. And it really taught us about how important it is to move people quickly through the system to permanent housing so that those beds turn over. And that's what our outreach teams need. That's what they tell us every day. Outreach is only as good as what you can outreach to. They need the beds to be available so that when they're talking to somebody in an encampment, they have a bed to offer, they can quickly move them inside and get them on that path to permanent housing. We've made a historic investment in interim housing in Los Angeles County, which is great, and now we got to make sure every single one of those beds and rooms is a pathway to exiting homelessness.
Wonderful. So Carter, what have been some of the biggest impediments to housing people experiencing homelessness, and how do those plan changes help?
If I had to oversimplify it, I think of two main impediments, access and trust. And I think LAHSA's new approach confronts both of those head on. With respect to access, unsheltered homelessness is certainly not new. It is growing, but we have had over 20,000 people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in LA for around a decade. What is new is the scale of our response. And so we have had a lack of access to safe and dignified shelter until fairly recently, and we've had a long-standing lack of access to affordable housing. And we didn't start coordinated entry until 2013. We didn't pass Triple H and H until 2016 and 2017. And the federal government, as Molly mentioned, didn't start using its purchasing power to help us secure non-congregate shelter and more vouchers until the pandemic. So we have got a long-standing lack of access to shelter and housing to overcome. In addition to that, we've got to overcome a deficit of trust because we spent that decade where we lacked all of those resources criminalizing homelessness, criminalizing people with substance use disorders, criminalizing mental illness, sending police out to do social worker jobs, sending social workers out without having them have access to the beds and the housing, so they were making promises that they couldn't keep because they didn't have those beds. And so we've got too many people with the lived experience of unkept promises that we have got to overcome. And I think what I love about this new approach is that it says we are increasingly capable of connecting people to housing. We've connected 78,000 people to permanent housing since 2017 in LA County. And so we're using that increasing capacity that we have, but we're also channeling that resource and that capacity to get more people turned over in our interim shelter capacity. And that means we'll be able to keep our promise. You come inside and we can keep you safe, and we can connect you to services, and we can partner with you on a long-term housing stability plan. And I think those actions will help increase our access to housing and rebuild the trust that we have with our partners.
Thank you, Carter. So Commissioner Murrow, so you're on the ground, right? Not only do you serve as a commissioner, but you're also the executive director of an agency that's providing services. So we've seen a lot of innovations in the work being done with families. Can you talk to us about some of those innovations and how they're being applied at Whittier First Day?
Sure. So at Whittier First Day, we primarily work with families through one of two ways. So one is we're working with parents that have been separated from their children and are looking to reunite, and they're in our single adult shelter. And then the second way is through prevention programs offered through our social services window, and primarily looking at utilizing tools that are available like diversion or problem solving, as well as leveraging some resources that are available from the private sector to help with prevention and relief payments that we use to keep people housed. So our number one goal is to first and foremost keep people housed. So if families come to our door needing assistance, it's evaluating what their situation is. Are they able to move in with a relative? Are they able to downsize their apartment? Do they just need help with their rent for that month? Our number one goal is to keep them housed. We don't want them to enter the system. The second way that we go about that then is looking at what are those additional supports that they need in order to continue to remain self-sufficient and be able to not enter the system in the future. Additionally, we also then look at what are ways to be able to connect someone in the event that we've exhausted all of those resources. So now how do we serve as a primary point to get them connected to the family system? Working with our partners, specifically in the SPA 7 region, like the Whole Child or Hoviness, depending on where the family lies in terms of age, and ensuring that there's a seamless transition into those services. As a parent, I understand wholeheartedly what we will go to through great lengths to make sure that our children have a safe place to stay, something in their bellies to eat, and can make it to school on time, and can stay out of having to see the doctor. And so our organization, as well as our partners, are working wholeheartedly together to be able to make sure that we're able to do that. LAHSA has been a great partner in ensuring that the resources that are out there are utilized the best way possible, are allowing for innovation and creativity amongst the different service providers as well, understanding that a cookie cutter approach is not what's going to work across LA County, and that we have to look at things like demographics, that age, income status, and other things like that, as well as immigration status. That's something that impacts specifically our area tremendously. But continued innovation, continued flexibility is what's going to be needed in order to effectively support our families and, one, keep them out of the coordinated entry system, but also to ensure that they have that safety net there in the event that they do need larger services.
Wonderful, wonderful work. So Kenneth, what's the biggest challenge to ending youth homelessness, and what opportunities do you see on the horizon?
Oh, there's a number of challenges to ending youth homelessness. I think one of the biggest ways we can do it in simplified terms is to prevent it from happening in the first place. The commissioner stated keeping those families housed is a big strategic step to ending family homelessness, and I think taking that same step with our youth, preventing them from experiencing the hardship of the streets. We know what the statistics and the data show us. The moment they're exposed to the streets, the more prolonged time they spend on those streets, the more damage is done. So taking those interventions to keep young people from entering homelessness to begin with. But I would be remiss without acknowledging the range of experiences that our youth are coming from that are more prone to homelessness. We're looking at our foster care system, folks who have been recently incarcerated and are coming out, and also a big population of LGBTQIA identifying individuals who have both been kicked out of the home or have been on the receiving end of domestic violence and have fled that abuse. So there are a number of systems that need to be corrected to prevent youth homelessness, and some of what that really relies on is development of new units. There needs to be a concerted effort specifically for youth. Their wages, even with market rate rentals, wouldn't necessarily meet that threshold. There are now these new tactics where you have to earn 3 times as more in order to move in. So specifically looking at this population and preventing it, a number of steps. One, to make sure that they can secure a unit. And then if they enter the coordinated entry system, making sure that the units are available through investment from both the state and federal government. We've received recent investments. Project Home Key is set to throw on a number of additional units that youth will be able to take advantage of. And then with the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program, that the LAHSA's Youth Advisory Board has been instrumental in streamlining and working with our youth leads, making sure that those resources and those new funds that do come in are both youth-centric, youth-led, that there's youth voice equipped with the distribution of those funds, but really so that we can tailor the best outcomes for our youth.
Mm-hmm. So Molly and Commissioner Murrow, this is a question for the two of you. What opportunities are available with new permanent housing sites coming online? Chauncey just talked about, the need for units. So can you talk about what opportunities are out there?
I can start us off on this one. It is really exciting how many new sites are opening up. 2021 was the year we started to really see those Proposition HHH units open up that the city had funded, that permanent supportive housing, new construction, additional supply that was so critical. We've also seen really important investment from the state and from the county that's also helping new units open up. And so we're seeing new buildings with new units open up with those supportive services. And that provides a tremendous opportunity for us to get even more folks off the street on their way to a path of stability. So we're really excited about this additional supply that's coming online.
Just to tag on to what Molly is saying, I think it brings an end game into sight. I mean, having units in place that we can actually have access to and move people through the system is phenomenal. It's not something that we had seen in the past where you have less than a 2% vacancy rate across the county. Yeah. As a service provider, it definitely makes things a little bit more exciting every day as we actually get out there and are able to say, yes, you have a voucher, we have a unit, let's match you, let's move you through the system. And it helps to address especially lessons for other cities outside of the city of LA to adopt and look at what are the things that worked, what are the things that didn't work, and how can we then adopt that and then triplicate the efforts that are taking place.
So this is our last question, right? And this is one for each of you. So I'm going to start with you first, Carter. What do you want the community to know about your work?
That no single entity created this crisis, and no single entity has the resources and authority to end it on its own. And so we're all in this together. We only get through this together. And so at the United Way and the Home for Good team, that's our focus, is let's bring everyone together to focus on what works, and let's put those solutions into practice. So if you are someone who is interested in being part of that, homeforgoodla.org is the place where you can find out sort of what we're all collectively doing. And if you're someone in your community who wants to advocate for inclusive solutions in your neighborhood, everyoneinla.org is a place where you can figure out how to take that action.
Wonderful. And Kenneth, how about you? What do you want people to know about your work?
I think I just have to piggyback and say my work, it's taken a village to get here. I myself am former foster, and I myself resided at the Union Rescue Mission just 13 years ago. So there's really no path to success, and it's taken a while to get here, working on policy. But I want to say that there were opportunities presented to me as I was transitioning out of foster care. And those unique ages of 18 to 25, there was a lot of attention given to me by mentors. It's not necessarily a money issue. It's really a guidance issue, especially for young people. What is the roadmap? It's so lost, and adults are so lost today with the way inflation is hitting folks and the cost of everything is going up. So it's what's that roadmap to success, and who are those trailblazers that I can attach onto and follow that path of success? And it's very difficult to chart, but there is a roadmap. And like I said, if we can figure out the housing and provide young people with that stability, provide them with that intensive just attention, making sure that they know they are worthy, making sure that they know that they are loved, and helping them find their way as they, become self-sufficient adults.
Wonderful. And Molly, how about you? What do you want people to know about your work?
Well, first, Kenneth, thank you for sharing your story, because it is so inspiring, and I do feel like there's a big piece of this around compassion and guidance and really coming together as a community. I think for me, the thing I find folks don't understand the most is that it took decades for this crisis of homelessness to emerge in the form that it is in Los Angeles today. We're not going to get out of it overnight. It took decades to get here. It's going to take a while to get out of this, but good work is happening every day. I mean, I think one of the great things about working at LAHSA is we get to be on the front lines of so many success stories, so many people who are getting stabilized, 21,000 permanent housing placements last year. So sometimes I feel like folks get a little hopeless because we can't snap our fingers and make the situations on our sidewalks go away. But I think the biggest thing to remember is that there are tens of thousands of heroes out there every day doing outreach, working in our interim housing sites, providing housing navigation and case management, helping people find an apartment, and then once they're in that apartment, helping support them so that they can stabilize and completely transform their lives. And it is one of the best privileges in the world when you get to see someone go from being on the sidewalk to being inside, there's literally a physical transformation. People look completely different when they get to have a good night's rest, take a shower, eat a decent meal, not worry about if their belongings are going to be stolen or they might be, assaulted on the streets. It's just an incredible privilege. And I think it's the heroes that do this work every day that are the reason I get up in the morning, because no one works harder than the folks at LAHSA. We work very hard, but we do it because we're inspired by the tens of thousands of people who are doing this work on the front lines every day in Los Angeles.
Yes. And last but not least, Commissioner Murrow.
Two things that I would want people to have as takeaways from today's discussion. So first and foremost is that understanding that our responsibility doesn't end once we house someone. We have to ensure that we're properly equipping those participants that we're working with to be able to manage the next crisis or the next situation that might come their way, and that we continue to be that support network there to help provide whatever resources or assistance they might need to ensure that they stay housed. What we know from homelessness is that it's cyclical. If you don't get it you take care of it as a child, it goes into someone who's a transitional age youth, from there an adult, and then we keep seeing the cycle of homelessness. And in order for us to really break that, we need to make sure that we're providing the proper toolboxes and those safety net networks. The other thing I'd like to say is that our success is going to be as strong as our collaborative. So if we work collaboratively together, if we bring whatever we have to the table and celebrate our successes and learn from anything that may not have worked 100% to where we wanted to, I think that's where we're really going to have change. And just as our fellow colleagues here on this panel tonight have stated, is that it's making sure that we're celebrating those successes and not, saying it's one particular cause or one particular person's fault. This is what we have to deal with now, and let's work together. So if we want to see change, we need to show up at the table.
Wonderful. Well, thank each of you for coming out tonight.
This concludes the 2022 State of Homelessness. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight and supporting the work being done to help our neighbors experiencing homelessness throughout Los Angeles County.
We hope to see you later this summer when we announce the results of the 2022 Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.